Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Dustin Meyer and we're going to do another tutorial today on doing some retouching. Again, I usually just kind of pick a very standard headshot so that you guys can easily see the before and after. But yeah, so let's get started. Okay, so we are in Lightroom and checking out the histogram here. Most of our midtones. Did I say we're already in Lightroom? So most of our peak here is right above, I guess, the aperture setting when you're in library mode. And the reason why I do this is because if I go any higher, if I try to actually balance out, let's go into develop mode here. If I try to balance out, like fill the histogram completely, watch this. Watch what happens to the subject. Too bright. So I'm just going to undo that, because most of what we're looking for is the balanced area for the skin. The background is white, but I do have some light fall off, so it has more of like a grayish appearance. So we're just going to leave it at that. Sometimes, depending on like how punchy or saturated the skin looks, what I actually do is I can take the vibrance down just a little bit to give a little bit more kind of neutral look, because later on I'm going to go into PortraitPro and I can add a little bit more to the skin tones and stuff, but this I feel like gives us a bit more of kind of a like a neutral palette to start with. And then also, let's see here. So we're down about, maybe -8 or so. Let's see what happens when we go down to -10. That seems a little bit better, again, because we're just kind of trying to avoid any major saturation, I guess, or contrast on the skin, because like I said, we're going to add it later. Tone curve, let's just see how it looks. Let's try, this is just a very kind of generic sort of tone curve. I do like -20 or +24 on the darks, bring it down a little bit, and then for the shadows, let's say about -15 or so. The reason why I do this is we get the contrast, but it also brings up, a little bit of shadow area without using the actual shadows slider, because I feel like that's a little bit more, using the tone curve I feel looks more realistic. Plus it kind of, again, sort of neutralizes the contrast in the skin, because if you have too much contrast, then what's going to happen is you're going to get really like a lot of reds and stuff, sort of like, I don't know, the rosacea kind of look, just very unbalanced. So this has, I feel like this has a much more even skin tone. So let's see here, moving on to detail. As usual, I've got everything sliders, just about right in the middle. I feel like I need to enhance sharpening if I'm going to take it into PortraitPro later. It helps with the facial recognition. And then also we got our lens corrections on. Yep, and then let's see, don't need transform or effects. Camera calibration, just Adobe standard. Some people like to use the other profiles, and maybe I'll do another video on that, but for now we're just going to leave it as it is, because I don't want this to take too long. Now, some of you guys might notice that we've got some stray hairs in here, and maybe what we'll do later is I do have some tutorials over on my other channel, Impact Photo, where we go over like a quick tip on how to remove stray hairs, fairly quickly, and where it looks pretty good. So I'll put a link in the description below so you guys can check that out. So for the most part, I think we're pretty good. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of show you guys my basic settings. If you notice, most of my exposure, other sliders are about the same. I've got my flash, white balance set to flash. I do have a neutral white backdrop, so what I can do is just do that, and it adds a little bit more magenta to it, which is not really my thing. So I kind of like to keep it a little bit cooler than that. So we're going to undo that, and I feel like this looks a lot, more natural in my opinion. So yeah, so I shoot in, I check my histograms in, or my histogram in my camera, and then I go back and leave my white balance to flash. But I feel like if I change it to flash in Lightroom, then it just doesn't, or I'm sorry, if I change it to white balance to flash in Lightroom, well, okay, I'm rambling. So here we go. We're just going to right click. Now I do have the plugin for PortraitPro already installed, so we just go to the plugin for Lightroom. So we're just going to go to Edit In, PortraitPro Studio Max, it's going to ask us to edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments. I do file format is TIFF, color space Adobe 98 because that's what I shoot in, bit depth 16-bit because that's what I shoot in, resolution 300, but I do use compression of the zip variety because otherwise it's just way too big of a file. But you can do PSD or JPEG, but again, you have a much wider color gamut to go with TIFF. And I'm only doing this for files that my client has already selected. So we're going to click Edit. So now it's going to find the face in the image. And as I've always done in the past, it will automatically find the face and try to bring it into the second step, which is adding the preset or sliders or facial adjustments to it. But a lot of times, I have to double check and make sure that all the lines are set up properly, so I always go to back and then just go in here and just make sure everything looks good. This, in my opinion, is important if you need to make adjustments such as fixing the jaw line, things like that. This is a good example of how doing the sharpening in Lightroom before you import is extremely helpful, because otherwise it has a harder time finding the lines. Whoops. There we go. Again, you can try and get this as perfect as possible, and I find that if I spend too much time on it, I'm going to waste a lot of time and my clients are going to be waiting forever. But just for example, the lines here do an amazing job as far as finding the outlines, mainly because I did do the sharpening. I've done it before where I just import it as is, and it seems to have a harder time. So everything looks good here. We're going to go to next, and now it's going to bring us into the step where we actually do the different sliders and stuff. So I'm going to mouse over this. You can see the difference. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll add a little bit of color to their skin, and I kind of tweaked the original preset for female standard to have just a little bit more of what I find to be kind of like the realistic stuff. So, but we're going to double check my skin coloring. Sometimes I have the tan up just a little bit, but for this time I'm just going to bring it back down to normal. And then let's see. Okay, so face sculpt, I really don't feel like we need it, but now if you notice real quick before I go into this, it's harder to tell how accurate especially the skin softening stuff is if you're zoomed all the way out. But if you go into face, even bring it down to 1:1, you'll notice that we still have a good amount of texture and stuff. It's just that when you zoom out, it kind of compresses it, or I don't know. But it seems to have kind of a softer look to it. But either way, so I am going to just do some quick touch-ups here. I've got my strength up all the way. We're going to bring it down just a little bit, and then we're going to click on that. There we go. Fix some of this up here. Good. And again, as you all know, we can spend way too much time trying to fix this stuff. So really we're just looking more for prominent spots. There it is. And okay. So now we're going to click out of touch-up mode. Really that's more for really predominant spots, I guess would be the best way to look at it. Face sculpt, sometimes if you're zoomed all the way in, like this one, it's 70mm. So I'm going to bring this in just a little bit. We can go extremely, yeah. Just wanted to show you guys the difference there. But what it does is it kind of helps correct for lens distortion. So anything above, I think 50, or maybe it's 80. I don't know. If you guys know, then please let me know. But anything that's too high, like 200mm, you're going to get barrel distortion, which makes the face appear wider than it really is. So let's see here. Eyes, we're going to leave as is. Okay, notice I've got the nose up all the way. That's usually built into my standard female standard preset. I do like to lengthen the neck, so I've got that in there too. But again, I'm not trying to make it look too different, just enough. Okay, I do have remove shine cranked up all the way because I want to see how it looks before I bring it back down. But I do feel like you want just a little bit of shine, because if you go too far with it, then it just doesn't it starts to look plastic. And you know, it depends on what you're going for. But again, you know, I find that having the shine up pretty high helps. But if the highlights are gone completely on the skin, then it doesn't look real. It looks very plastic. And then let's see, as far as everything else here, I feel like we're doing pretty good. She's got very even skin. Notice that I've got my spot removal set to medium sensitivity. So what that does is it finds most of the spots on the face, such as over here and whatnot. And I like using whatnot a lot. But notice a lot of these spots are taken care of. I don't have to go back and do spot removal for that. There we go. Okay, so I think the skin smoothing looks really good. We're going to go to skin lighting. I try to get my lighting pretty point on when I am actually doing the pictures. So let's take a look here what it looks like without. For some reason, I also find that skin lighting seems to soften a little bit, but you can also use it to maybe even out the light a little bit more. If you find like over here, I've got a pretty good amount of shadow here. So we're going to use the left kick, and that kind of helps bring it in a little bit more just to add that dimension. But personally, I kind of like it how it is. So we're going to leave that as is. Modeling just sort of helps add a little bit more color to it. You can add a little bit more contrast if you feel like there's less dimension to the person's face. At the same time, just keep in mind, I feel like it just tends to soften the skin almost too much. So, but if you feel like you need it, you can go back into skin smoothing controls and bring it down just enough to where it's not so soft. There we go. There it is. And for me, I like having some texture in the skin, like the pores and stuff, because if we go, again, if we lose that texture, then it just doesn't seem to look real. So let's bring it up just a little bit more. There we go. And like I said, I like having my skin, the lighting portion of it, I like having that done like in the studio, like while I'm shooting. Makeup controls. This is something I don't use very often because I'm not really going for something super, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for. Like, I don't really go for like super glamour shots. Like I try to keep it looking realistic. Eye controls, we're going to go up just a little bit here, just to kind of bring out the color of her eyes. There it is. And then mouth and nose. I'm not so worried about this because it's got, she has her mouth closed, so we don't have to whiten the teeth so much. But I'm going to leave it in there because it also helps kind of define the shape of the lips, especially if you've got some skin softening going on. It helps bring that back, as well as a little bit of contrast around the nose. And then also hair controls. This is really good. Again, you guys already know this, but let's just double check here and make sure we've got a good color. And then also we're going to go into hair type. Actually, before we do that, we're going to go to view, edit hair area. And lately my computer has been running fairly slow, and I think that's because I've got Lightroom mobile or sync set up in the background, so whenever I restart my computer it kind of tends to slow things down. For the most part, this does a pretty good job. I'm just going to get the rest of these areas here, and it doesn't have to be perfect. There we go. Then go to hair tidying mode. But this way, when you edit the hair area, it makes sure that whatever color you want to apply to the hair, that it, is all of the hair. Go to smooth hair. And that way, any like strays that kind of cross over the hair are actually taken care of. Again, I tend to do stray hairs like these flyaways and stuff in Photoshop. But we're going to go click OK on this one. And like I said, I'll put a description or a link to my other video in the description area below. Now, we're just going to double check and make sure the skin coloring is decent. There we go. See how the difference is, like when you bring it in here versus, you know, if you try to correct for it in Lightroom. I feel like it's just, I don't know, I feel like a one click in here just goes a lot easier. You can do picture controls in here, but I usually tend to do most of that while I'm in Lightroom. So other than that, I think it looks pretty good. We got rid of most of the shine. We got rid of a lot of just smaller imperfections and stuff without making it look too fake. So I don't know, as usual, whenever I'm done with one of these, I really like the results that I get. But for the most part, let me know what you guys think. You can just leave a comment below. If you want to see more videos like this, you can subscribe to the channel. And if you learned something today, I'd really appreciate it if you guys hit that like button. But other than that, I think we're good. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. My name's Dustin Meyer, and we'll see you in the next video.